There was a prophecy that a cultivator would eliminate the Dark Lord. To prevent that prophecy from coming true, the Demon King decided to wage a war, and so all the demons fought against the cultivators. The battle was catastrophic, and the humans came out defeated. With that, thousands of years passed, and people no longer even knew what cultivation power was. And from then on, magic began to rule the world. Our protagonist was the last cultivator. But there's a catch, folks. They ceased to exist more than 5,000 years ago, so how could our protagonist still know how to cultivate? This story here is very curious. A peculiarity of this protagonist called Zhang is that he only thought about money. Think of a capitalist lunatic. He did everything to earn as much as possible, even stealing the clothes of enemies to sell them. And being tough, he gathered several girls around him. Leave a like and a comment to support our channel, and also check if you are subscribed, because most of the people who watch our videos are not subscribed to the channel. After building the hype, let's get to the video. The story already begins with a boy lost in the forest. Some monsters appear, and we see they were goblins. Before he could do much, he ends up being hit. Nearby there was a group of warriors on an expedition. One of the soldiers comments that the hunt would be easy because Catherine was with them. This girl was a rank B mage, and since she was noble, her parents wouldn't let her train. That's why she was in the forest with those guys. However, someone appears behind them whistling. It was our protagonist who had just arrived. The big guy finds it strange to see other adventurers in that dangerous forest. The soldiers ask why there was a civilian there. In fact, Zhang was also hunting monsters to make money. Hey, I think that long-haired guy is kinda crazy. Just because our hero had no magical power, they assumed he was a weakling, and to be sure, they pointed a magic measuring weapon. The number 0 appears and they immediately start laughing, saying he was really nuts. Mental power? I've never heard of that before. I just want to hunt monsters. Thinking Zhang was naive, they burst out laughing. Catherine said it was necessary to have magical power to hunt monsters, and that, if he was lost in the forest, she could protect him. Oh girl, you don't know this guy. She even explained how the magical power rankings worked, ranging from letter E to the strongest letter S. The guy said that this weakling would only get in the way, but our tough hero ignored Will's. Hey, long hair, are you an idiot? You'll die if you stay alone. To protect the boy, Catherine decided to follow him. Since she was a rank D mage, she needed to protect the weaker ones, and also mentioned he could be useful for collecting the items that fell to the ground. Walking together, they started defeating several monsters. The warriors were trying to level up, and the mage used her magical powers as training. With everyone's help, they defeated several goblins. The two soldiers told Miss Catherine that she was very skilled, and Zhang realized that those two guys were simps, circling around the girl with endless compliments. If you've never had a simp friend, it's because you were that simp friend. Hey, you two, pay attention. Don't let your guard down just because it's easy. There are still many more monsters ahead. They go to a place that looked like an ancient sanctuary. Those two simps say that the long-haired guy didn't know anything. But the mage noticed that place really had a different aura, and just by seeing some crows in the forest, it was clear that the place was dangerous. There was a gigantic orc there, and as Catherine approached, she felt an intimidating presence. She was face to face with that creature. It was a huge goblin king. The group was already in shock. It was the first time they had seen a monster that big. Trying to show off to the pretty girl, one guy decided to go there alone. He got brave because he noticed the monster seemed to be asleep and even poked the creature to show off. It'll be really easy to defeat this stupid monster here. Look, Miss Catherine, see how I'm a powerful hunter? While he was fooling around, the orc wakes up. Zhang tries to warn him, but the guy ends up losing his arm. That was the price for playing around. Now injured, he cried in pain. The monster stood before him and was a third-level creature. The monster let out a roar and the two flirty soldiers fainted. The mage ran to check on them. As the situation was critical, the girl asked the long-haired guy to hide. If necessary, she would give her own life to save that stranger. She even began to chant a spell. A magical spirit appears to attack the goblin, but the monster simply smacked it away and dodged the attack. He managed to block my strongest spell. The monster charged to finish the girl. She tried to use a water barrier and prioritized defense to protect our hero, but that blow destroyed her barrier, leaving the mage badly injured. To defeat a goblin like that, it would take at least a rank C adventurer. Besides, her companions were already defeated. The poor girl thought she would die in a pathetic way, and worst of all, she couldn't even save that stranger. The goblin went for the final blow. As she sighed, she realized nothing happened. When she opened her eyes, she saw that our big guy had stopped the sword with just 2 fingers. The huge monster was terrified, and with a sigh, our hero said that it was nothing special. Catherine was lost, trying to understand. Hey girl, can you move? She answered yes. Then Zhang told her to step aside. Realizing the guy was tough, she simply accepted. From behind the tree, the girl asked if that distance was already safe, and our hero said yes. Hey big guy, have you ever been struck by lightning? Without giving the creature time to respond, he already electrifies the sword. I'm sure at that moment the monster had already soiled itself, messed its pants. A gigantic lightning bolt fell from the sky. This was the celestial lightning technique. The power came crashing down right on top of the goblin's head. The woman realized that this technique was not magic, it was something different. Right after, he told the girl to come out from behind the tree. She was a little confused, especially when faced with a monster turned into barbecue. She wondered what frightening magic that was, and it was strange since he had no mana at all and even so unleashed that power. Maybe he was the type of warrior who hid his strength just to surprise others. Remember that people of this world were not familiar with cultivation. It was a different kind of power, let's put it that way. The next day, they were still there collecting resources. After recovering, the two soldiers realized what had happened. Catherine said they weren't strong enough and that the long-haired guy had saved everyone. Somewhat shyly, she also said that the long-haired guy was the true hero. We can already see that this girl will fall in love with him. Think of a lucky protagonist. The guy was meditating and she didn't understand anything he was doing. The only thing she knew was that his power was too deep. The two boys showed up apologizing for having offended him the day before, and they ask, "How will the materials be divided?" "Don't apologize to me, I just want you to hand over all the items." The boys thought that was too much and the only reward Zhang gave them was a goblin fang. "Just this? Aren't you ashamed?" The guy said he had used very expensive medicinal herbs to heal the two, and didn't even charge for it. In the afternoon, they finished collecting the items and Zhang had a huge backpack. After collecting the monster parts, Catherine asked if he was really leaving like that. The guy said he was going to sell the items in the village. She was interested in the big guy and just wanted an excuse to follow him. The two soldiers were whispering that the long-haired idiot didn't take the most valuable part. That's because in the Adventurers Guild there was a poster offering good money for the monster's body. Since Zhang was a tough cultivator, he managed to hear from afar and asked what they had said. With a sly look, he said he would take the creature's body. Later, they arrived at Iron City and went to the merchant to sell the items. The total came to 13 spirit stones. The guy was already excited because even though they were low-quality stones, it was a lot. The other two adventurers were crying with envy, but our hero had a good heart and ended up giving them a pouch with some little stones. Now that he didn't owe them anything, the boy said goodbye, but the mage went after him, held his hand and made the boy uncomfortable. She still didn't know his name and asked how she should call him. "My name is Zhang Tuanchu." Later, at an inn in Iron City, he decided to go to the sauna. On the neck of that goblin there was a pendant, which he ended up taking. The strange thing was that there was cultivator energy emanating from it. While relaxing, the amulet began to glow, until a fox came out of that strange pendant. She stood before him. "It's been 5,000 years, finally someone managed to free me." The little fox had a name, and the most interesting thing is that the man who freed her possessed a powerful energy. Since the nine-tailed fox fed on energy, she was already getting flirty. "Looks like today is my lucky day." She went up to him and planted a big kiss on the boy. It was the best feeling she had ever had, since she was feeding on a very strong energy. "Hey girl, who are you?" That made her startled, asking if he had been awake the whole time. Our big guy was clever, folks. He took the chance to get a taste of her. The little fox was all embarrassed, and he already deduced that she was trapped inside that pendant. Unbelievably, he almost solved the riddle. Trying to seduce him, she thought this guy could be a great source of energy, but to test him, she decided to use an illusion spell. The guy asked the little fox what that smoke she released was. In just a few moments, he was hypnotized. He stood up and saw two servants. They came to satisfy all his desires. After holding the big guy's arm, one said he was very muscular, and the other even said that he had a lot of power in a certain place, if you know what I mean. Meanwhile, Baiken waited to see if he would fall into the trap. If by any chance he couldn't resist, it meant his energy was weak. But our big guy was really tough that day and realized it was an illusion, so he didn't fall for it. He even asked if she has played enough already. Looking at the sensitive areas, the girl's cheeks turned red. That's because he was very powerful, remember? He even glowed all over. That made the girl have a nosebleed. And if you know what that means, comment below. Later, she explains that she needs to feed on someone else's spiritual energy. Many years ago, she only had the form of a fox, but after she gained powers, she got that human form. She even imagined she would be sealed forever in that amulet, since no one appeared to free her. Since she was feeling a great energy, she thought he was a cultivator. Our big guy confirmed by saying yes, but as far as she knew, cultivators no longer lived in this world. That's because 5,000 years ago there was a great battle, and the demons ended up winning. With that, all the cultivators were eliminated. The world went through great changes, and the history of the cultivators was purposely erased. From then on, mermaids appeared and also elves. I bet you can't wait for those elves to show up. Succubi also appeared, who were kind of half-human demons and liked to practice cultivation in groups. There were other races that appeared over time while the fox was sleeping inside the bracelet. Even so, he survived for 5,000 years. And she asks how he did that. Zhang had forgotten everything, as if he had lost the memory of the past. The fox says he will probably recover his memory over time. That was exactly what he wanted, and he asked why she cast that illusion on him. But before she answered, he had already figured out it was just a test. That was true because she was unable to restore her spiritual energy. That's why she needed someone really strong. Since she felt that he had plenty of spiritual energy, she asked if she could take advantage of him. Besides, she would be useful, as she could track valuable treasures. Our big guy only thinks about money, so of course he accepted quickly. What? Was it that easy? Trying to seduce him, she asked if he didn't want to ask for something else in return. You know very well what she was offering, right? But our hero is a man of respect and said he didn't need that. But calm down, young grasshopper. Our hero won't keep refusing that all the time. He's still going to get lucky in this video. Right after he asked about the ancient treasure she could track. The next day he woke up early to go after money. She had already heard about his name. It seems that this name belonged to someone very important in the past. At that moment she feels something and notices that there was a crowd near a church. She warns that there was a sacred relic there, and our big guy gets curious. That was the public square of Iron City. The people were watching a spectacle, and Baiken warns that there was a relic right up front, so they got closer. When they got there, they realized it was a sword stuck in a stone. That was the treasure the fox had talked about. According to the rules of the past, to remove the sword, the person first had to pass a test of bravery. An old man commented that this was nonsense, because it had been thousands of years and no one had managed to move the sword even 1 centimeters. The sword of bravery was a sacred weapon used in ancient times. Several heroes tried to remove it, but none succeeded. Then someone asked what was wrong with Zhang, since he looked fascinated. In fact, he had already seen that sword before. The scene goes back to 5,000 years ago. In a vision, someone carried that sword. It had been forged with cultivation magic and could cut even the spirit and the soul. After handing over the sword, the person said it could cut everything between heaven and earth. The big guy says he never imagined he would find his sword after so long. The fox finds this strange and asks if it was true. He said he even remembered its name. The sword was called Yulong. He approached to try to pull it out. However, he was stopped. Not just anyone could get close. The fox defended her master, saying he was a brave warrior and wanted to remove the sword from the stone. But the soldiers laughed, saying that every day a crazy person showed up saying the same thing. To be able to remove the sword, first he would need a recommendation from a noble family and then perform the test of bravery. Only after that could he try to take the sword. Alright, but what if I'm not from any noble family? Are you going to try to stop me? Preparing for combat, they said they would use brute force. But someone with some very pretty legs appeared saying not to fight. It was Catherine, who was there inviting him to participate in the tests. Since she was part of a noble family, the soldiers were terrified of having offended her. This girl was part of the Steve family, and because of that she could give him an invitation to take the test. With blushing cheeks and somewhat embarrassed, she asks if by chance he would like to try to pull out the sword. Our big guy says yes, but they weren't letting him. Calmly and gently, Catherine explains that, according to the rules, he had to do the test of bravery first. The little fox beside him asked why that girl was speaking in such a sweet way. It must be because she's all in love, right? If by any chance Zhang wanted, she could give a recommendation. He asks if he will have to pay her for that, and the girl says no. Since it was free, Zhang asks her to also write the girl who was with him. Riva already gets jealous because she was wearing the same clothes as him and even wonders if by any chance they had some kind of relationship. You can already see that our hero's harem was starting to take shape. A few days pass and they go to Phantom Valley to take the test. The guy finds it interesting that they went to a place like that. Just the aura of the place already made the participants scared. Someone shows up saying they will explain the rules. They should bring back the demon cores. And there were only 3 cores in the forest. These cores were very precious to the church, and could be obtained by defeating level 3 demonic beasts. This was a rank B priestess and her name was Mel. She keeps saying that only 3 people could pass the test. The crowd there starts saying that this is almost impossible. They wouldn't be able to defeat level 3 monsters, but a blonde guy shows up there all arrogant. His name was Carl and he said he was a rank C warrior. His rival appears and tells the blonde to stop bragging. This was Meyer, a rank C warrior who belonged to the Point family. These were the 2 main competitors who were there. But the blonde feels the pressure and starts trembling a little. The guy wouldn't stop provoking him and that's why he got angry. He even thinks he'll need to eliminate his rival to succeed. So he simply turns his back, saying he won't forget those provocations. Zhang feels a malicious intent coming from that blonde. While talking with Katarine, she explains that this guy was very dangerous and he shouldn't get involved with him. The crazy guy noticed there was someone without mana, and even comments that he's very brave for entering the valley without magic. This time he will be recognized in the city and pass the test first to pull out the sword. When we see a guy acting like that, we already imagine he's going to get beaten. The priestess begins and approves, and everyone runs into the forest. They go as fast as they can and realize the forest created a kind of labyrinth. The blonde stops near an entrance with a dark energy and keeps thinking which side he should enter. But the dark-haired one said he would take the cleaner route. Everyone was undecided because no matter where they went, they knew they'd be screwed. At the organization's place, they asked Katarine why she chose such a weak guy to represent her family. If he were humiliated, it would stain the family's reputation. But the redhead keeps saying they were mistaken. Zhang was much stronger than everyone imagined, and the girl trusted him. The priestess finds this a little strange. They end up arriving a little late and realize no one wanted to go through the middle path. To choose the right place, he decides to let a stick fall on the ground to point the entrance. And that's exactly what he does. He decides the path was through the middle entrance. The little fox asks if this was reliable, especially because that path was the scariest of all. But without complaining, Baiken ends up following him. On the way, she grabs his arm and asks if he heard anything. She even mentions she was feeling short of breath, and our hero says it's because she was pressing her chest against his arm. There were ghostly noises, and when the fox looks back, she realizes there was a female ghost. She was coming their way, and she was actually quite a pretty ghost girl. Our hero finds this interesting, but doesn't really trust ghosts. He goes there to check, but the fox said it wasn't a very good idea. This protagonist of ours was an atheist of ghosts. He didn't believe, and when he touches the girl to check, she ends up turning around. At that moment, he stopped being an atheist and felt a little disappointed, thinking the ghost would be prettier. So he immediately throws a punch, sending her straight to hell. The poor ghost had nothing to do with it, and was defeated. Yeah, it looks like ghosts do exist. Help me take off her clothes. The fox thought her master was a true shameless man, but when she looked at the ghost woman, she saw she really had a beautiful body. Still, it would be strange for the master to want to do this kind of thing. The guy goes there, takes the clothes, and comments that he will sell the fabric for a good price. The mercenary level of this guy is extremely high. You haven't seen anything yet. Realizing the ghost had expensive clothes, he decided to hunt more and more ghosts, and even comments that this one had almost new clothes. So he goes there, greets her, and keeps joking with the ghost. The poor thing falls on the ground, and with that, he gets more fabrics. That night, he managed to collect many clothes and kept doing this with all the female ghosts he found. They were almost exorcising the whole forest, folks. The other competitors weren't doing very well, since they were scared and thankful for not having encountered any ghosts so far. But to their bad luck, a zombie appears and everyone starts screaming in fear. The noise draws the attention of even more zombies, and since they were cowards, they couldn't even move. One of the monsters attacks them, and that group of competitors ends up being completely eliminated. On the other side of the forest, Zhang, together with Baiken, were very excited. Even though her new master acted irresponsibly, she felt very safe by his side, and even said it was very pleasant to be with Zhang. At that moment, a female ghost appears in front of them. It was amazing they had managed to come this far into the forest, and this was a level 3 ghost maid. By the fragile appearance of this boy, she imagined he was really weak and would be there to feed her. At that moment, he throws the bag of clothes on the ground and says she should take off that maid outfit and put it in the bag. Think of a cheeky guy. The woman already imagines he wants to do other little things. Comment down here if you would have the courage to face a ghost like that. And it's that kind of facing I'm talking about. They were standing in front of a woman and she asks if she heard right. Come on girl, put the maid outfit in the bag. This makes the ghost angry, saying a human cannot give her orders. So she casts a charm spell and releases several scarlet bats, ready to devour the boy. He laughs, saying this is going to be easier than taking candy from a child. But a blue flame appears behind him and defeats all those evil bats. The ghost smiles, saying this will be more interesting than she imagined. The one who did that was the little fox, to protect her master. The guy says that technique was cool, leaving the fox embarrassed. She was doing it only to get a compliment from him. Baiken, do you want to fight this bat woman? That makes the ghost feel offended, as if she had been belittled. And when she charges at our boy, Zhang says that his companion didn't want to fight, so he will have to defeat her. He tries to take her clothes off by force and ends up touching a sensitive area. That makes the ghost blush and jump back. She keeps calling him a shameless old man. Calm down, Monster High. You got it all wrong, girl. I just really want to take your clothes off. I'm not interested in that saggy balloon. Before defeating her, he wanted to make sure the clothes were in perfect condition. The guy gets serious and starts using a speed technique to try to take off the maid cosplay. Even the fox is surprised by his techniques. The guy is very skilled with his hands and the fox ends up fainting. He managed to get what he wanted, folks, and after defeating the ghost, he got the stone he needed to pass the test of bravery. The fox said it was easier than she imagined, and now with the bag full of items, he said he had a lot of time left and they could farm even more. He even tells the little fox that they would defeat all the magical beasts in that valley, and that's exactly what they start doing. That other dark-haired warrior had defeated the demon and gotten the magic stone he needed. He comments that it was difficult, but he finally managed. But the blonde appears behind him and says he hasn't forgotten the provocations earlier. He even says his rival is lucky for having gotten the stone. What's wrong, Carl? Are you following me by chance? Do you want to steal from me? The blonde says he's not interested in him, especially since he already got his own stone core. So, if you didn't come to steal from me, what are you doing here? When he draws the sword, he realizes the boy came for revenge, and with an evil laugh, he admits that's exactly it. But the two had equal strength, so the dark-haired one charges forward with his sword, intending to quickly defeat the blonde. Crow manages to block with his dagger. The battle starts getting intense, and since both were the same rank, it could last many hours. But the blonde wasn't alone. The guy was a coward, so he made an alliance. An arrow was shot and hit the knight's neck, and the worst part was that it was poisoned. He immediately falls, feeling weakness in his body. A member of another family made an alliance with Carl to defeat Meyer. The poor guy had no way out, since two trash had joined against him. With the dagger at his neck, the boy keeps threatening and says that what happens in the Ghost Valley stays in the Ghost Valley, and that way the knight ends up being eliminated. He even says that this bastard died because he thought too highly of himself. Turning to the green-haired one, he said he would meet the same end, especially because he wouldn't leave any evidence against himself, and ends up eliminating the guy. He had eliminated his greatest enemy and couldn't leave alive someone who knew this information. At that moment, the guy feels a gigantic pressure and even falls to the ground. It looked like a level 3 beast had arrived, and looking in the direction the energy came from, he starts trembling all over. At the place where the event was being organized, the priestess there also felt this energy. It was an evil pressure, and she even thinks about calling reinforcements. It would take 3 rank B hunters to deal with this situation. The only thing Katarine kept thinking about was Zhang's well-being. We see it was a gargoyle, and it was there causing terror to everyone. This was a level 4 demonic beast, and it was even stronger than they imagined. Our hero celebrates while the little fox keeps saying they should run away. Calm down, girl. Didn't I say we were going to defeat all the monsters to get the items? Ah, humans, today is my lucky day. Is it because of my great power that they didn't run and stayed paralyzed? With a little laugh, our hero tells this monster not to talk nonsense. In fact, he was paralyzed because he thought that crystal on the monster's forehead was worth a lot. Is today the day I get rich? The gargoyle doesn't understand anything and asks what he means by that. Our hero already jumps to try to steal that crystal and immediately slaps the gargoyle in the face. The monster flies far away and ends up destroying part of the forest. At that moment, the stone beast realized our hero was powerful and even thought he must have some kind of strange power. Since he had no mana, the big monster imagined that our hero had to enhance his physical strength. After taking a slap on the ear, our hero charges again. The guy says he won't be defeated by someone who doesn't even have abilities. And to block the physical attacks, he surrounds his body with an absolute defense. No way a weakling like him will be able to hurt me. But it was no use using the absolute defense. He still ended up being punched anyway. The blow was so powerful that it broke all that crystal armor. And again he is thrown far away. Baiken comes running with his little bag, asking if he was hurt. Wait, you even brought my bag? Of course, I wouldn't leave your belongings behind, master. A smoke began to rise and the girl realized it was a demonic essence. That dark energy began to fill the entire place and the gargoyle was in a new transformation. He looked a little different, much taller, and said it had been a long time since he felt so excited about a battle. He strikes his staff on the ground and this causes a huge earthquake. Our hero finds that a little cool, but what he didn't expect was that this smoke was toxic. That black mist had a poison effect. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the Phantom Valley, people were scared to death. The other competitors ended up returning, saying they felt a malicious presence. Katarine was worried about Zhang and Baiken because they hadn't returned, and as expected, the monster celebrates victory too soon. Our hero asks the little fox if she was feeling afraid, and she says no because she trusts her master. And with a smile, the big guy says she's doing well and puts a kind of protective barrier on the girl. He says this is his golden pearl of protection and she won't be affected by the poison. The girl gets worried because her master was unprotected. This toxin wasn't lethal against him because our protagonist was really tough, but she doesn't believe it and thinks he's valuing money more than his own life. Yeah, girl, you think I'm gonna run away from here and leave that precious stone behind? The gargoyle keeps saying that humans are all arrogant and stupid. And performing hand seals, our hero begins to summon a spell. The gargoyle doesn't understand anything because that human was ignoring him. And when those enchantments happen, Baiken seems to already know more or less what it was. It was the techniques of the 5 laws of thunder. These were famous techniques and our hero was doing them with great ease. When he opens his eyes, he summons a thunderbolt from the sky. That energy falls at his fingertips and ends up forming a sphere. The gargoyle mocks, saying that magic doesn't seem like anything special. And to counter, he was also going to make a spell. The guy ends up creating a gigantic orb and throws it at Zhang with his trident. Immature monster, this is nothing compared to my power. The techniques of the immortal cultivator were much more powerful than the magic of this modern world. And that little lightning ball of our hero ends up breaking all of the gargoyle's magic. Not even the monster believes this is happening. And again, he ends up being hit in the face. But this time there will be nothing he can do to survive. And so a gigantic explosion happens. The entire forest shakes, and Baiken confirms, saying that this technique is really the one she had imagined. That priestess, Miss Mel, comes running to see what was happening. The light of the explosion reaches her, and the lady is left not understanding anything. This energy was much more powerful than that level 4 monster she had felt earlier. That night, the entire Phantom Valley was devastated because of our dear Zhang. The gargoyle also turned into barbecue, and the only thing our hero was worried about was whether that precious stone had been destroyed or not. and luckily for him it was intact. It suffered no damage. The little fox comes running toward him asking if he was poisoned. He had lied, saying the toxin wasn't lethal for him, just to keep the girl calm. In a kind of cute way, she keeps saying that he shouldn't act so tough like that, and the guy asks if she knows any way to remove that toxin from his body. The girl knew very well, and she already moves in to give him a big kiss. With that, she begins to suck all the malicious toxin that was in the boy's body, but she ends up getting too carried away, guys. However, Zhang realized it was really working, and all that poison was sucked out by her. Soon after, she stands up all excited, saying it was finally over. I don't know, but it looks like you liked it, huh? Baiken says it is a pleasure to share in the pain and suffering of her master. Ah, alright, if you say so. This guy didn't seem to care much about his companion, and she keeps asking if that technique he used belonged to the sect, and he says he had never heard of that sect. He even asks why she wanted to know that, but she keeps giving a little laugh, disguising it. On the other side of the valley, people were still waiting to see who would appear there through that passage. The priestess was trying to understand if it really had been Zhang who defeated all the ghosts. Even the soldiers were there with her, waiting for someone to come out of that place. And a demonic silhouette appears in the middle of the smoke. She said the demon had appeared and everyone should prepare for combat. But as it gets closer, she realizes it was our hero, and he was carrying that huge gargoyle, and by his side was the dear little fox with her bag full of spoils. Wait a minute, he defeated that level 4 monster? Seriously? Mel even asks if he was the one who caused that big explosion. She turns around trying to understand how Miss Katarine managed to find such a powerful guy, and what bugged their heads is that he didn't even have mana. Deep down, Katarine is relieved because the guy she likes came back safe and sound. The blonde boy of course liked being recognized and was dying of jealousy. Our big guy threw the gargoyle on the ground, and after stepping on the monster, said that beast must be worth some money. And besides the monster, they also brought several clothes taken from the ghost women. Tell me, priestess, where do I sell all this? Wait a minute. He defeated all the ghosts and also that level 4 gargoyle with such ease. From the sky, a new demon appears, investigating what had happened. That gargoyle was her mount, and the woman gets angry, saying she will take revenge on the person who defeated her pet. And the most irritating thing of all is that this human ended up taking all the magic stones. She ends up levitating some stones. All this to be able to identify the energy that was used to defeat the gargoyle. And what ends up surprising her is that, in fact, it wasn't mana, but spiritual energy. I don't know if you remember, but demons are the #1 enemies of cultivators. After all that commotion, our protagonist managed to sell all the items he collected, and right after went to the square in the city center. The priestess said that only 2 people managed to do the bravery test, which were precisely the rookie Zhang and that guy there, the blonde K. He had managed to get only 1 stone, but our hero managed to get 2, and besides that it was a level 4 stone stronger than his. What is it? Why are you staring at me? Never seen anyone scratch their ear? The priestess asks who wants to go first, and the blonde already says he wants to be the one. A large crowd had gathered in the city center to watch this spectacle. He holds firmly onto the sword, and after using all his strength, he can't move a single millimeter. The guy uses so much strength that he even starts screaming, and right after he falls to the ground exhausted. People keep saying that it was already to be expected, and since the strongest boy didn't make it, they already leave, saying the next one isn't even worth staying to watch. The little fox is back there trying to defend our hero, but Zhang didn't care at all. That guy thinks too much of himself. He must be a crook. Without much fuss, our hero climbs onto that stone. The sword was shining. He finally arrived. He had heard the sword talking to him and remembers when he used that sword in a fight. It was as if she were his old companion, and besides battling for many years, they also cultivated together. But our big guy didn't remember much of that. He even gets a bad feeling but still decides to pull the sword from that rock, and without much difficulty, our big guy simply pulls. A very strong light begins to illuminate the entire square, and incredibly, our big guy was there raising the sacred sword. The crowd watching couldn't believe it. The rookie simply pulled the sword that had been stuck for over 1,000 years, and from there came out a dragon. This was the ancient artifact, the Yulong sword and the little blue dragon. The guy keeps talking in our hero's head, but our protagonist didn't seem to recall those stories he was telling. You must be confusing that person, man. I don't even know you. The crowd was scared because he was simply catching the attention of the spiritual dragon that came out of the sword. At that moment, Yulong remembered the final battle that happened against the Demon King, and probably that's why Zhang doesn't remember anything. So the dragon keeps joking, saying that this boy won't be able to master his power, and even said that the cultivator only felt attracted to him because the sword was very beautiful. Next, Catherine comes running to congratulate the boy. She said she always believed he could do it, and now he was the worthy hero of the Iron City. Our hero also thanks her because thanks to her he managed to do the test, and she gets all embarrassed. At that moment she sees a foxtail passing, and it was precisely Baiken, and she goes running, jumping to hug our protagonist. Catherine, poor thing, is petrified, saying that girl was very forward, and there was the little fox rubbing herself on our hero. He even comments that he was feeling suffocated. The poor mage wonders if, by chance, if she were more forward, she could also do that with the master. Mel goes over there saying he was amazing. She didn't expect the legend of the hero who could pull the sword to come true. She wanted to see the sword, and our hero tells her to be careful, and besides to hold it tightly because the sword was heavy. When he hands it to the lady, she ends up dropping it on the ground, and the explosion is huge, showing that the sword was really heavy. I'm sure at that moment you remembered Gara versus Rock Lee. It was at that level because the sword stayed stuck in the ground. Zhang got down from that high stone and kept scolding the girl, saying it was all her fault. The little fox thought the sword could only be mastered by him because he was a cultivator. There were still many treasures from the cultivator's era, and only people like Zhang could use them. And since our big guy was the last cultivator, basically he was the only person in the world capable of using those items. He tells the girl she will have to pay a fee because she dirtied the sword, and she is completely shocked. Someone ends up arriving there, and it was Katarine's father, saying it was impressive that a young man his age managed to pull the sword. This guy was the head of the Steve family, and was inviting our hero to a banquet. "Why the hell would I eat with you, man?" The priestess explains that this guy is very rich and is Katarine's father. So it was basically this guy who wrote the letter of recommendation. Knowing he was very rich, Zhang's eyes start shining. He goes to Katarine and asks if she will go with him too, but the girl was crying. So he approaches and says her father invited him to dinner. As the young master was very close, the girl was completely embarrassed. The hero was kneeling, talking to the daughter, and the man kept watching everything, even saying that this sacred hero really was different. Later, he goes to the Steve family mansion, and the guy already starts throwing tricks trying to get money from him. They end up making a deal, and the old man agrees to give money to our hero, saying he would support his work. Think of a slick guy. Upon entering the mansion, he notices that the banquet really was very fine with expensive food. But our hero says he doesn't need to eat because he doesn't feel hungry, and the little fox gets scared when she hears this. Only transcendental level cultivators and immortals could go an entire lifetime without eating. A few minutes pass, and the one who ends up tasting the food is the little dragon. He starts yelling, saying the dragon wasn't supposed to leave the sword whenever it wanted. Right after, he shows that precious stone to Katarine, asking her if that was worth anything. The girl explains that these stones are extremely rare and highly demanded, being able to be sold for the value of a mansion. That's because they were placed in weapons, making them more powerful. The dragon stays there smelling that stone, and knowing he had managed to gather something so valuable, the guy is already excited. But there was a catch. The little dragon ended up eating the sacred stone and even burps, saying it didn't taste that good. Realizing this, Zhang gets furious. "You just ate a stone that could buy a house." The dragon already thinks he's screwed. Putting his hand inside the dragon's mouth, he tries to pull the stone back. But that was impossible. Catherine's father tells him not to do that. If by chance he broke that sacred sword, everything would be ruined. Besides, that dragon was also a weapon, so it probably ate that stone and got stronger. And that's exactly what happened. The dragon ended up leveling up. That made a lot of sense after all. The dragon was still an artifact. Someone ends up arriving at that place called by the maiden. He asks permission to bring a gift, saying the Steve family wanted to show goodwill to the master. Since the guy likes money, he gets all happy. There were 3 boxes equivalent to 30,000 spirit stones. I bet it was the happiest day of his life. Right after, they end up giving the deed to a mansion, and our protagonist asks to sell it and bring the money. They also gave an indestructible golden armor. He does the same thing, asks to sell it and bring the money. That shameless butler blushes, saying they also brought 3 servants for him. And they were the most beautiful in the whole city. Those 3 girls were professionals. You know in what, right? They were specialists in the art of seduction and already start doing their work. Catherine tries her best not to show she's jealous, but it was hard to control herself, since the 3 were around Zhang. The blue-haired girl says the master could ask her for anything. And again, he's not interested in any girl and asks the butler to trade them for money. Never in their lives had someone refused their services. But our hero is different. He opens the door for them to leave. Right after, who ends up arriving is the priestess, who also brought a gift. This was the knight's medal and represented that he was the hero of the Iron City. The big guy asks how much this medal is worth and if he could sell it. She says it has no real value, but he could use these medals to have some privileges. He could command some people of the church below rank D, so he decides to keep the medal. Speaking sweetly, she says she would like to ask him something. Just look at the face this woman makes. She asks if she could touch the boy. Of course, all the girls there start thinking nonsense. He asked if she really wanted to grope him, and she said no. It wasn't for him to misunderstand. Actually, she had a power that could read a person's mana just with a touch. So she touches our protagonist's chest, trying to read the powers he had. He says that if she took 1 more second, he would charge an extra fee. Think of a mercenary guy, people, for God's sake. She starts reading all the power of our protagonist and feels something burning in her body. She even gets a little closer and already starts screaming. Right after, she even falls to the ground, saying it was an incredible sensation. It seems she had never felt anything like that and realized he had no mana. It was a different power. At that moment, a scream outside the mansion makes everyone tremble. The priestess asks what strong shockwave that was, and our big guy mentions it's another demon that was outside. The sky was dark, and from there a black dragon appears. He was breathing fire, burning the entire city. A girl comments that she had heard of the legend of this dragon, but she never imagined it was real. This was the primordial dragon of 1,000 years. It throws a fireball at that girl, and who shows up to save her is none other than Zhang. He just gives a breath, and the fire stops in the air. Every minute that passes, the guy gets even tougher. From up above, the priestess comments that this guy must be very powerful because he stopped the dragon's fire just by blowing. And the little fox said it was for the girls to start getting used to it. The legend said this dragon appeared every 100 years to try to devour the sword, and every time it appeared, it destroyed parts of the city, just like it was doing now. But it had been almost 1,000 years since this dragon had appeared in this city. That's why people started to think that legend was just a lie. But Baikin starts to doubt, thinking that the dragon ended up being attracted by Zhang's power. While saying a prayer, the priestess asks that Zhang managed to defeat this dragon, otherwise it would destroy the city. The girl who was saved thanks him, and our hero says it's enough to pay a small fee for the rescue, but she said she would like to pay with her own body. Ah, my girl, don't even try it. The dragon starts wandering around the city, destroying everything. Our hero faces that creature and says it should stop doing that, or else it would be eliminated. Of course, the dragon wasn't happy at all. It tried to devour our hero, but he simply gives a little slap on the dragon's face and makes the creature bury its head in the ground. The priestess thinks that was a lie. She doesn't understand anything. And in the middle of the smoke, we see that the dragon really was defeated. Looking at the creature, our hero feels that its spiritual energy was flowing the wrong way, and even asks if by chance there wasn't some treasure hidden inside the stomach. Yulong appears coming out of the sword and mentions that this dragon always comes trying to devour the sword. But it had already been about 100 years since it last appeared. Hearing that there was a treasure inside the dragon's stomach, our hero already gets that crazy look and starts kicking the dragon, trying to make it vomit the item. But the kick ends up being too much, guys. The dragon is launched far away. I need to control my strength better, or else I'll destroy this treasure. While the dragon was flying in the sky, it ended up cutting its belly. It began to expel energy everywhere, and right after vomited that magic item. Baikin realizes that Zhang's crazy move had worked, and he managed to recover the sacred item. The treasure in his hand was the Millennium Mirror. By accident, he ends up using the item and goes to a parallel universe. The dragon goes along with him and says that this mirror creates an alternate reality and serves for many things. The dragon ends up calling our hero, saying his name was Zhang Tianch. Looking at that figure in the sky, our hero asks if by chance he recognizes him. And the dragon replies yes, because they fought together in the Great War. But says he is no longer the same as before. A bit confused and not understanding anything, our protagonist asks the dragon to explain. The creature says the face and the essence of power are the same, but the personality changed drastically, and explains that they fought together in the battle against the demon god. And since the cultivators ended up losing, he imagined that Zhang had also been defeated. And very curious, the dragon keeps asking what the hell happened to his master. Our hero guy's lost his memory, so he doesn't understand anything this dragon is talking about. And preparing a fireball, the dragon says that all the suffering he is having is because of the cultivator's defeat, and already launches that fireball at our hero, trying to eliminate him. Well, little dragon, you asked for this. Our hero uses the long sword to block that power, and orders his sword to defeat the enemy. The dragon manifests in the sword, and when passing through the black dragon, makes it turn into barbecue. When the enemy falls defeated to the ground, our hero gets a bit curious to understand what it was talking about. Right after, Zhang gets that magic stone from the dragon and asks if Long also wants to devour it. But he would only give the stone if Yulong told what that dragon was trying to say with those words. Well, I suspected that sooner or later you would be curious to know about your past. Actually, you are just a fragment of Zhang's soul, Master Zhong Chanshu. It may be a coincidence due to your physical appearance, but you received parts of his soul. Since Master Zhang Chanshu was defeated, he remained asleep inside the Great Tree of Life, until a lightning bolt reached his body and he gained freedom. It may be that, during this time, Zhang's true soul went to the world of the immortals and only a piece of the fragment stayed there with our protagonist's body. For 5,000 years, the Demon King dominated these lands, but since he wasn't interested in the world of magicians, he stayed in the demonic continent. The Demon King's greatest fear is that the cultivators return, because there was a prophecy that said he would be eliminated by a cultivator. That's why he started the war and managed to defeat all the cultivators. But during that battle, he ended up self-destructing along with Zhang. Since then, it's a mystery whether the Demon King is alive or not. And the dragon also mentions that probably Master Zhang, who is our protagonist, inherited the will of the prophecy. Therefore, he carries the mission to avenge the cultivators and defeat the Dark Lord. Our hero comments that his identity has nothing to do with this ancient cultivator master, and that he doesn't want to follow this prophecy, especially because he wasn't interested in carrying someone else's responsibilities. Yulong didn't imagine that Zhang would refuse to follow the prophecy, so he would have to find another way to convince him. That's why the dragon says that when he defeated the Dark Lord, he would re-establish the cultivation sect and also dominate a great region. In other words, he would be the richest man in the world. Hearing these words, our hero gets motivated and tells the little dragon that they need to return quickly to the Iron City and complete the mission. There's nothing money can't convince our hero of. To get stronger, guys, he will have to collect some soul fragments because the way he is now, even being powerful, he probably wouldn't defeat the Demon King. If you got this far in the video, consider leaving your like and a comment. It's serious, guys, it's very important here on YouTube. The more comments, the more YouTube recommends our video to other people. And also check if you are subscribed to the channel. And if you're already subscribed, activate the bell. The scene changes to the demonic continent. We see that woman who owned the gargoyle, and she was reporting to her lord. She had brought a polluted demonic item called Controller's Cube. A woman at the top of a staircase ends up collecting the item, and this mysterious woman gets all excited, saying it's full of demonic power even after 5,000 years. But Obsidian, who is that woman with green hair, says that she has something else important to report. She reports to the Demon King that there was a cultivator in Iron City, and we see that the guy was really alive, guys. He was not killed and keeps asking for them to bring this cultivator to him. The scene goes back to Iron City. The priestess couldn't stop thinking about our hero and even comments that this is being a little strange. He showed that he possessed a great special magical technique, and it was very different from the mana they used. With blushing cheeks, she keeps saying she never had this kind of thought about a man and finds it a little strange. But it was a sin for her to be thinking about that kind of thing, since she was a priestess of the church. In Catherine's room, Baiken was there spying. She noticed that the redhead was extremely in love with Sang and was sad because she hadn't confessed to him yet. The next day, very early, he was going to leave on a trip and the girl still hadn't done anything. That's right, guys. She wanted to get to the point with him and, a little embarrassed, she asks if by chance she confessed her love, if he would reject her. The little fox noticed that the redhead was in love with her master and decided to give her a hand, casting her enchantment spell. There in the bathtub, Catherine could see that pink smoke, but before she could do anything about it, she ended up being hypnotized. The next morning, our hero goes to say goodbye to Catherine, since the fox said it was good for him to do that. And when he gets there, the girl says she was waiting for him, and still tries to throw her charm, saying she would like to give him a proper farewell. A little naive, he said she would catch a cold if she kept wearing so little clothing, and also thanks her for helping him during those days, feeling very grateful. And hugging her from behind, she said she wouldn't like to be left by him. Since the day he saved her from the goblin, the girl couldn't stop thinking about our boy and was in love, and that's why she wanted to have special memories of that farewell. Doesn't that sound like something you would say? Did Baiken do something to you? With blushing cheeks, she said no, that she was very lucid and already went ahead taking off that dress. The next morning, the day was beautiful and our hero was very happy. So you can already imagine what happened. The little fox asks how the previous night was, and he keeps remembering the scene he saw, even comments that it was very good. But as he suspected it was the little fox's doing, he keeps disguising. She winks, implying that it really was her doing. When he was about to leave the city, that annoying blonde guy goes up to him and says he can't let Zhang leave the city with that sword. The fox asks if by chance he's crazy to think he can stop them, but someone appears there to help him. That was Jenny, his mother, and she was a rank S mage. It would be very important for the Onassis family to possess the sacred sword, and therefore they allied with 2 more families. That was a rank S psychic fighter, and they came to stop our hero. The knight said he came to avenge his son's death. That Meyer who had died to the blonde was this guy's son. Guys, Zhang said he didn't eliminate any human there in Ghost Valley, and it was probably that blonde who was lying to the knight. But it didn't matter if they were rank D or rank S, our hero would defeat them all. Seriously, he said that if they got in his way, they would be eliminated. Jenny mentions that everyone there is rank S, and therefore they would defeat our protagonist. All this was Carl's scheme. He had manipulated everyone. Well, I don't have much time, but I'll teach these kids a lesson. The musketeer immediately prepares his sword and uses the electric piercing attack. He shapes gigantic lightning bolts. However, Zhang prepares Yulong to block that attack, and far beyond blocking, he ends up reflecting, making that electric dragon turn against the musketeer. The guy is surprised because he realized that his strongest technique was reflected with great ease. There goes the dragon against all of them. The knight uses the protection of sacred light and manages to block that attack with his defense magic. If it weren't for the guy's shield, everyone would have become barbecue. He even trembles, saying the impact was huge. The destruction caused by those lightning bolts is visible on the ground. And Jenny is a little surprised because our hero doesn't even have mana and can achieve that kind of effect, but it would be a very great humiliation for the family to lose to a young man like that. As she couldn't leave Iron City without the sacred sword, she said she would give her most powerful attack. She throws her whip at Zhang and the boy gets curious about that technique. Upon hitting the spot, it causes a great explosion. But the woman realized that it wouldn't be enough and was already preparing other attacks. She starts hitting the place with several whip strikes, and even the knight says that Jenny is overdoing it a little. That idiot is going to be minced by my mom's attacks. But to everyone's surprise, he holds her whip. He suffers no damage because he uses Buddha's protection. He even comments that her outfit looks very expensive, so she should hand over the clothes immediately. She thinks he is shameless, and before she knows it, he is already pulling the girl by the whip. Imagining that he wanted to do those things to her, the girl blushes. No way, guys, she must be at least 40 years old. The redhead ends up jumping back, trying to escape from that jerk. The knight asks why she is blushing and if by chance she likes that boy. The blonde notices that his mother was disrespected in front of everyone, and in great anger says he will not let it go. As he walks toward his opponents, our hero asks why they are scared if they were all brave just a moment ago. Leaping, he appears behind the blonde saying he will use a technique to humiliate him. With fencing techniques, he cuts all of the blonde's clothes, leaving him completely naked. It was very humiliating, and he even comments that he feels a cold sensation. This was to teach them not to mess with people they didn't know. Squeaking sharply, the blonde says he will not accept being mocked. Now it's his mother's turn, but the woman manages to dodge that attack, and while flying in the sky, she says she won't fall for the low blows of this brat. Performing a summoning spell, she says she will finish this guy once and for all so he won't keep disrespecting her. This was the Anasis family's secret magic called Ammunition of Destruction. She starts firing multiple crimson spheres at our protagonist, and he says there's no choice, he'll have to defeat this woman and destroy her clothes. And it would be a huge waste, because her outfit seemed to be worth a lot of money. The woman screams up there saying he keeps saying shameless things. The little fox is worried, saying he is in danger of being hurt. Planting his feet firmly on the ground, he tells the fox not to worry. He makes a very high jump. I'm not in danger because this woman doesn't even have the speed to hit me. At that moment, Baiken realizes not to doubt her master's abilities, because within a second he is already face to face with Jenny and performs the fencing technique just to humiliate the woman. All of the redhead's clothes are cut and she begins to scream, calling our hero shameless. And to increase the humiliation even more, he ends up grabbing the woman's whip. Embarrassed, she asks what he plans to do, and the boy ends up tying her up, leaving the girl immobilized. At that moment, she realizes she is completely vulnerable before this horrible creature. Imagining that our boy was going to do that to his mother, he starts shouting. Baiken knows very well that her master isn't capable of doing that, and is just messing with them. While trying to cover his parts, the blonde tells the guys to help his mother. Calm down, boy. We are gathering the power. They begin to concentrate a large amount of mana, and the musketeer, after charging, says he will use the lightning sword technique, while the knight uses the growing technique and transforms into a giant. Excited, Zhang says that this technique is really amazing. Don't mock my techniques. The guy uses the divine strike technique and the sword collides with the ground. However, he feels that Zhang is holding the blade, and that's very bad. Not even the secret technique was able to stop him, and our hero is there with his sword blocking that attack. Is it just me, or did you just call yourself God? After moving his own sword, he manages to make the giant retreat. That unbalances the knight, and he wonders how that young white-haired boy can be so powerful. But the knight mentions he won't accept being dishonored by a trash cultivator. After saying those words, our hero appears in front of him. What did you just call me? The guy starts sweating since he had called our hero a trash cultivator. With no time to apologize, our hero delivers the final blow, and the guy is hit right in the chest. Remember to watch your mouth in your next life. Thus, the guy starts falling on top of the blonde and instead of running, screams until he finally collapses. Zhang had defeated two with a single sword strike and even comments that the blonde got what he deserved. The next to be defeated was the musketeer, but we already see that the guy was sweating all over and instead of fighting, simply turns around and flees. It seems that these Iron City warriors are all cowards. He was running, saying he wouldn't be able to defeat that young man. Even Jenny from the Anasis family was defeated by him, so the guy didn't even try. When he thought he had escaped, our hero appears beside him. The guy almost gets defeated just from the scare. With a quick movement, Zhang grabs his neck and uses the Celestial Lightning technique. A gigantic lightning bolt strikes the musketeer's head, and that is enough to make the guy be defeated. I tried to hold back, but it seems the explosion was pretty big. Returning to Iron City, we go to Miss Catherine's room, who is feeling her body very hot. She remembers what happened the night before and imagines it was the little fox's doing, because otherwise she wouldn't have had the courage to do that. Returning to the forest, our hero had tied up Jenny. The woman says she is a chaste woman and cannot let this type of thing happen to her. To let her go unpunished, he decides to make a contract with her. She would need to pay about 100 million spiritual stones so he wouldn't do anything bad. Even though she didn't have enough stones, she decides to sign. After making the agreement, our hero leaves. Leaving her tied up, worried about her son, she drags herself toward him. But at that moment, someone appears. It was Obsidian, the servant of the Demon King. She was looking for the cultivator and followed his energy to this forest. The redhead asks the demon to untie her so she can save her son, but the only thing Obsidian wants is to know where that cultivator is. You're looking for Zhang. That guy is very powerful, you wouldn't be able to defeat him. But Obsidian explains that she is the Demon King's servant and would like to take that boy's life. Upon hearing that someone would eliminate that guy, the woman says he went east so that the demon could take revenge. Obsidian doesn't understand why the cultivator left the woman in such a provocative pose, so to speak. While leaving, Jenny stays in the background asking to be freed, since she can't untie herself. "Ah, my daughter, do you really think a demon will show mercy?" When she looks up, she notices a gigantic rock falling on her. In this way, all the members of Iron City who came to stop our hero were defeated. The demon even comments that this cultivator may have a little mercy, but she does not. A little later at night, our hero was traveling with the little fox and comments that they need to find a place to sleep. He was excited because he had managed to make a contract for 100 million spiritual stones. Even if the family didn't have enough money, they would have a lifelong debt. Since the forest was dangerous, he has a brilliant idea to find a place to rest. He would use the magic mirror to take the little fox to that parallel universe, and she starts thinking naughty thoughts. "Come on, my daughter, stop having those impure thoughts." After entering inside, Baiken wonders why she is having these feelings for Zhang. What made her a little sad is that she didn't understand why he worried so much about money, even more than about his own life. But she realizes he used those spiritual stones to cultivate. Since he didn't eat guys, he used those stones as a form of food, so to speak. But the little fox realizes she is truly falling in love. Getting up, she says she needs to get some air outside the mirror or she won't be able to control her impulses, and so she opens the portal to leave the mirror. Outside, she tries to understand why she cast that spell on Catherine, making her lie down with Zhang. The poor girl feels guilty, but at that moment, a gigantic rock falls on her. The girl manages to jump out and realizes they are being attacked. There were giant stone golems, and what was supposed to be a walk to get some fresh air turned into a battle. The monsters hit the ground, and the little fox uses phantom fire. That causes an explosion, defeating the goblins. The fox starts shouting, asking who is summoning those monsters. Obsidian appears behind her, asking if the little fox called. "She appeared behind me, I didn't feel anything." Smiling, she says she traced the spiritual energy and came there, asking if the fox is the cultivator who defeated the Iron City warriors. So she is looking for Master Zhang. I cannot let her find him. The girl starts pretending to be the powerful cultivator, and happily, Obsidian says she finally found the person the Demon King wanted. After introducing herself, she says she will take the little fox to her master, but not alive, and begins casting a spell with her staff. The fox realizes she is in danger but cannot block it, and is hit by the attack. The magic throws the little fox far away, making her crash into a rock. The attack was powerful, and she starts feeling her body ache. The demon was much more powerful than the Iron City warriors, so the fox needed to protect her master. Realizing that the cultivator couldn't resist her attack, Obsidian says she is disappointed. She imagines it is because the cultivator exhausted her energy fighting the rank's mages. After throwing some sharp stones, she says it's the end of the fox. The girl manages to jump and dodge the attack, and appearing behind the demon, she launches her phantom flames. However, she is dominated by the spell and thrown hard to the ground. Our dear little fox didn't have enough strength to defeat a demon. Besides obeying an order from the Demon King, she also wanted to take revenge on the cultivator, because the cultivator defeated Gula and still said it was the destiny of all cultivators to die at the hands of demons. She ended up making a gigantic stone spear. The fox asks if the Demon King is alive, and Obsidian says yes because her master would never be defeated by that little cultivator. The Demon King was returning at his peak, ready to dominate everyone. Thanking for the information, the little fox says that now she knows who is the true enemy of Master Zhang. The demon tries to find out who the Zhang she is mentioning is. Since the fox had seduction spells, she ends up doing exactly that. The pink energy reaches Obsidian, who becomes enchanted, and her deepest desires are activated. She begins to have an illusion, serving the Demon King. All embarrassed, she says she would do anything the king wanted. The king stands and says he knows very well what he wants. He wishes for Obsidian to be his wife. All shy, she asks if she really deserves that, since she is not a good person. The king goes there, grabs the girl by the waist, and says he has always desired her as his woman, and will order the wedding ceremony now. The girl becomes very emotional. And that was nothing but an illusion that the little fox cast on the demon. She begins saying indecent things. You can already imagine what she is dreaming. The fox realizes it worked and will use this opening to defeat her. The spell makes the person's deepest feelings surface. This was the right moment to finish the fight. However, the fox is hit. Obsidian strikes her with her staff. I didn't expect you could break my enchantment. Obsidian did this by piercing her own body with a stake, since the pain canceled the illusions. After removing the staff, we noticed that the little fox's wound was quite deep. Gradually, Obsidian approaches, saying she will not forgive the fox for what she did. The Demon King's body was immaculate and could not be tainted by sleeping with a woman like her. What the fox did was unforgivable, and she would be eliminated that night. At that moment, our dear Baiken realizes she couldn't defeat her and begins begging Zhang for help. At that instant, our dear boy appears and manages to cut that gigantic rock with just the palms of his hands. The demon does not understand anything. Our hero turns to Baiken and says it's dangerous for her to walk alone at night. Poor little fox was crying. She still says her master is stupid for taking so long to appear. Stop crying, I'm already here, you can be calm. With an intimidating aura, Zhang asks what that demon wanted. She notices that he has a very strong resemblance to the Demon King. It even seemed like they shared the same lineage or a common ancestor, and she still wonders what this guy tried to do with that woman who was tied up. But she recognizes him as the cultivator who was hunting because of his intense energy. Intense magic. I haven't even done anything yet, man. And as expected, cultivators were very arrogant, she says. She casts a spell with several stones, thinking she could destroy our boy, hit the place she wanted, and still boasts, saying she is very powerful and that the fight was faster than expected. She also comments that there is no chance to show mercy. The place was full of dust, and when the dust dissipates, she sees a protective barrier. There was our hero scratching his ear as if it were nothing. This surprises the demon. She had used an extremely powerful spell and caused no damage. Then the guy casts a small power on her, and that strike pierces the girl. She is thrown far away with a deep wound and cannot believe a simple strike from that cultivator defeated her. Approaching, the guy asks what happened to the Onassis family, especially Jenny, who left him tied up there. Obsidian admits she had eliminated that woman. This makes our hero furious since he had lost the 100 million from the contract. Why are you so angry that I killed a simple human? What did you say? You really killed her? It seems the demon had never felt such overwhelming power. The boy, guys, was really furious. He had never been this angry before. Obsidian even imagines that he probably had a romance with that redhead. Slapping his face, she says she couldn't be thinking nonsense. It didn't matter who she killed, those people were of no importance. After standing up, she says she is a servant of the Demon Lord and will not bow to any cultivator. Raising her finger, she says she will pour all her energy into a single attack and begins concentrating a dark energy. She was summoning the meteor that devastated the skies. Giant meteors begin falling to the ground, all in the direction of our hero. Karate comments that this power was really amazing. After releasing Yulong, he tells the dragon to destroy all the meteors. Opening its mouth, it begins swallowing the meteors and even gets a full belly. Then the dragon burps and Zhang says that Obsidian had overestimated her own powers. They were on completely different levels. Lowering her head, she admits defeat, saying she is not capable of defeating him. Before defeating her, he wanted to ask one last question. He wanted to know if she could pay the 100 million spiritual stones from the contract she had made with Jenny, but she had no money and says she is unable to pay the debt. So he decides to steal all her equipment as payment and uses his magic mirror. With that, he begins sucking all the items the demon had. It wasn't enough to pay the 100 million stone debt, but it was still a good start. Without any clothes, she says that this cultivator is despicable and that she won't let him take her body, as it belongs entirely to the Demon King. Calm down, girl, you're getting ahead of yourself. I have no interest in you. He uses celestial thunder and finishes that demon. Her body disappears, leaving only a magic stone. This was the 5th level demonic stone. After taking that sacred item, he offers it to his dragon. Next, he goes to the little fox to see if she was okay. But arriving there, he is shocked. The girl was extremely injured. He places little Baiken on a tree and realizes the wound was deep. He tries to pat her face, telling her to wake up, but it doesn't work. She had fainted. Next, she manages to grab his arm and says that if he continued patting her face, he could lose his life. Placing the girl on his shoulder, he says he will take her to Iron City to be treated by the medium. But that wasn't necessary. She says that just absorbing his spiritual energy would be enough to recover, but to have a stronger effect, they would need to go to a hot spring. Wait, we need to bathe together for you to recover. That was exactly it. Are you sure I need to take all my clothes off? She says yes, but thinks it's unfair that only she has to be like that. You have to take yours off too, but the fox gives some excuse. Soon after, he begins to release his magical power. The girl screams, saying it's unbelievable that he possesses so much spiritual power. Next, she approaches, saying she will drain a little of his energy. But the girl is a little embarrassed to do this, especially since she needed to kiss him. They even end up falling into the water. All that energy flows into Baiken's body, and they stay underwater for quite a while. When they return to the surface, she says she is completely healed, and the boy says he almost died and didn't imagine she had so much skill. Then you can imagine what they were doing. She says his spiritual energy was very seductive, and for that reason she couldn't control herself. The next day, they depart on their journey. Yulong had become gigantic after consuming Obsidian's spiritual stone, and since the previous night had been very exciting, so to speak, she began to get even closer to our hero. At that moment, she senses the presence of an enchantment and warns our hero that there must be a valuable item at the bottom of the mountain. We see a woman running through the forest. She was an elf, and she was fleeing from hunters. I know very well that you waited just to see the elves. The guys say that elves are worth a lot of money on the black market, but the little blonde stops running, and if they wanted to kidnap her, that meant they were enemies. The elf's name was Enola, and she performs a butterfly spell. Those butterflies surround the hunters, and thus she performs the Cisne curse charm. The butterflies end up draining the hunters' energy, turning them into mummies, and they collapse weakly to the ground. That was because they decided to hunt this beautiful elf. Other hunters arrive from behind, saying there's no way she can escape. These were elite wild bandits, and they lived from predatory hunting of magical beings. The redhead says that these elves are worth a lot of money, and Enola defends herself saying she is not merchandise, and for that reason they will pay the price for treating elves like objects. The butterflies go toward the hunters, but the woman uses a fire tornado and says that these weak elf spells were not capable of stopping them. The girl realizes her insects were eliminated. This was the first time Enola had left the elven village and had already encountered strong bandits. A beam of light hits that tornado. She wonders what dissipated that magic. Who had arrived was precisely Zhang with Baiken. The little fox comments that she is feeling spiritual artifact energy coming from this girl. Then the guy approaches her closely and comments that this girl really has a beautiful body but doesn't seem to be a magical tool. But something catches his attention. The guy keeps looking at the blonde's chest, saying it seems that's where the energy is coming from. The bandits ask, "Who are these two interrupting your hunt?" And the spiky-haired guy already grabs his sword, saying he won't let anyone interrupt his merchandise. They thought our hero wanted to steal their elf, and for that reason they attack using their powers. The guy looks back to see who is bothering him, and the two bandits realize he's dangerous. With just 2 slaps, he defeats the hunters and then throws 2 stones at them, sending them flying and falling defeated. Every day I have to deal with these annoying guys bothering me. The elf turns red because she saw that the guy was strong and defeated the enemies effortlessly. Soon after, he uses the magic mirror to steal all the clothes from those bandits. A thief who steals from a thief has 1,000 years of pardon. The elf is embarrassed because he just stripped the enemies and turns to him as he makes that mischievous capitalist face. The woman trembles, thinking he might do the same to her. For that reason, she crouches and begins begging him not to steal her clothes. He doesn't want to steal her clothes, only the artifact she was hiding. Later, they sit and start talking. She explains she doesn't have any magical tool, and it was even strange because they felt energy coming from her. In fact, elves drink water from a magical spring. They do this to stay young. According to the village elder, this energy source gives them power. Additionally, it makes the skin beautiful and hydrated and also increases breast volume. And it was precisely in these magical springs that elves had children, since there were no male elves. The little fox was excited to see this magical spring and try a bit of it. But a few months ago, a group of demons took the magical water spring, and this demon used somewhat crude methods, that is, very peculiar ones. Since it was a demon, you can imagine what he liked to do with these elves. Enola comments that she left the village looking for people who could help the elf group. All motivated, Zhang said he could handle this because he would save the village himself. He wouldn't leave a group of defenseless women at the mercy of demons. But we know he's interested, guys. The guy only thinks about money. He doesn't care about these women, especially since he already has a little fox by his side, right? Why would he need these elves? They go to a dark forest, and our hero finds it strange that the elf village is located there. But in reality, this forest only protected the village. The little fox asks why the elf was looking at Zhang so much. In fact, the elf group consisted only of women, so it was the first time she had seen a man and found it very curious. Furthermore, he should be careful because since the elves had never seen men, they could feel attracted to him. They said it would be good if he disguised himself as a woman, but the guy doesn't think that's a good idea. If you want my help, it has to be my way. After passing through the dark forest, they finally arrive at the village. The place is extremely beautiful and bright, very different from the outside. After arriving there, the guy comments that the view is very beautiful, and you know exactly what he's referring to. Upon arriving, 2 elves come to welcome him. They were surprised because Princess Enola returned with 2 helpers. With a charming smile, she said she brought 2 saviors to eliminate the demon from the magical spring. But the elves find this guy a little strange, saying he is different from them. They said he had a somewhat flat chest, and he said that's logical because he is a man. Upon hearing the word man, she becomes enchanted and starts calling the other elves, saying there's a man in the village. This news spreads quickly, and all the blondes come running to check if there really was a man there. They had always heard about men, but never seen one in person. They all arrive and start showing off to our hero, intending to make him desire them. In a few moments, the place was surrounded by beautiful elven girls. The guy was very popular and even becomes a little embarrassed. The little fox comments that he is very popular and can get whatever he wants. Yulong ends up coming out of the sword and is enchanted, saying he had never seen so many beautiful women before. Since he was a shameless dragon, he falls in love and starts flirting with the girls. But they don't feel much attraction to him. They much preferred the human. The dragon says that if they want, they can ride on him for a tour. This scares the girls a little, saying they had never seen the dragon speak. Zhang even gets mad at his sword, saying he is very cheeky. An elf arrives, showing all her femininity. This was Enola's sister, and she asked why her sister brought outsiders. It had been over 5,000 years since any man entered the elf kingdom. This was Aurora, the queen of the elves. As soon as she sees our protagonist, she starts drooling. Hey Baiken, is it just me or do all these women here seem like they want to devour me? Queen Aurora, Enola's sister, says he should be taken to her room. That's because she needed his help to solve a matter. The little fox clearly understands what that queen wanted to do. Hey elf queen, I don't want to discuss any strategy. Just take me to the well and I'll defeat the demon. Don't be so impatient, young man. You still have a lot of energy to spend. What do you mean by that? She had taken our boy to her room and says it's very difficult to manage the elf kingdom because it's a tough task. Since this work was very tiring, she needed to relax a little, and says Zhang should relax too, starting to try to take off his clothes. Her heart started beating faster as she saw him. For that reason, they couldn't waste time and should relax immediately in bed. I don't know what you mean, girl. She asks why he isn't reacting and if he prefers to be guided. If so, she will take the lead and starts taking off his clothes. When she realizes the guy is muscular, she is shocked, saying his physique is perfect and prepares to cover him with kisses. But our hero tells her to stop and asks what's wrong with her. Next, he gives the elf a light slap, throwing her onto the bed. He also says he is a very serious person and has no time for games. But it seems she liked that slap, and when he turns around, he realizes the girl is asking him to hit her again. My god, guys, now the embarrassing scenes are about to start. It's even embarrassing to record this here. What do you want for me to give you another slap? She says elves are really beautiful but very needy because they don't meet men throughout their life. Since she had never left the village, this is the first time she sees a man. For that reason, she is acting this way and even apologizes. The work of the queen was very difficult, so she dedicated herself fully to protecting her people. She told these little stories to see if he would feel sorry for her, and asked if she now deserves a reward for telling her sad story. Making a face, he says that won't happen. You can forget about it. Then she moves on to another strategy, showing a valuable topaz, and says that if he lies with her, she will give him the item. So, are you willing to do this or not? Of course. I would never refuse the request of a beautiful woman. Thus begins the dual cultivation inside the cabin. Outside, the girls find that sword curious, because it transforms into a dragon. But it's not just simple dragons he can transform into. He also transforms into the beings from the magical stones he ate, becomes the ghost maid, and immediately after transforms into the demon Obsidiana. The elves find that very curious, and the shameless little dragon is there completely in love. At that moment, the little fox notices some strange noises coming from the cabin and comments that she feels a dual cultivation energy inside. What strange sounds are coming from in there? Could it be that the young master is doing something with the queen? She becomes curious to know what is really happening but tries not to appear jealous. And that's exactly what you were thinking. The scene shifts to the camp of the wild bandit group, and the guys say that a long-haired guy had stolen their clothes and even hit them. The leader was sleeping on top of a tree while his subordinates complained. This was the leader of the wild bandit group. He had telekinesis power and was S-class. The guy was angry, saying they were useless because they got beaten, and the little redhead says it's not her fault. That guy was very powerful and even left her humiliated on the ground without clothes. He also said he managed to see all parts of her body. Upon hearing this, the leader becomes furious. Not even he who formed this group had managed to see Gina completely naked. She also said that the guy fled to the elf village. Again, the leader becomes furious because not even he, who lived in the region, managed to enter the elf village. With much envy of our protagonist, he says he will get rid of this guy and teach him a lesson. Follow me. Let's go after that shameless guy. Back in the elf village, our hero is in the queen's cabin. Enola goes to check on her sister as she heard some strange noises. When she opens the door, she is surprised by the scene. She didn't expect this to be happening and becomes very embarrassed. Our hero also realizes they were caught in the act. I'm sorry, please. You can continue. She is about to close the door. The queen tells Enola that this is a misunderstanding and that she was just testing this man. The bandits reach the cursed forest surrounding the elf village. He warns his companions not to be distracted by the beauty of the elves. When they arrive, they face 3 beautiful warriors. They comment that more men have entered the village, but gradually begin to be hypnotized by the beauty of the elves, as it was hard to resist such beauties. The leader stands there shamelessly, saying he gives up on fighting. Gina, the red-haired woman, says the leader is shameless and imagines that it will be up to her to fight these elves. The other warriors were also infatuated, but even so, they try to fight the women. The queen appears to save the elves and uses the moon eruption technique. The massive explosion defeats the wild bandits, and she asks if these trash really wanted to die. The elf queen faces the bandit and says that now he will regret entering the village. The guy, guys, is extremely infatuated. He knew the elves were enchanting, but not as much as he is witnessing. Our boy makes a joke asking if Aurora is tired of the games, and also says that the bandit ruined their fun. The spiky-haired guy understands perfectly what our hero means. He becomes very angry and says this guy in strange clothes thinks he's something just because he's with beautiful women. So he charges, trying to eliminate our hero, but the elf queen lands a kick to his face. The guy comments that the kick from an S-level elf is very powerful. He says his companion is very skilled in martial arts. Since the blonde was in love with Zhang, she wouldn't let anyone touch him, and says he has a valuable body and energy, if you know what I mean. Therefore, she couldn't let him get hurt. The only person who could touch him was precisely her. The girl keeps saying this. Everyone there feels second-hand embarrassment. Even the long-haired bandit leader feels embarrassed. She tells her elf companions to help her in the battle. The girls unite to defend the village. This leaves the crazy guy outraged, asking how it's possible to have so many beautiful women. The bandit group also won't stay idle. Thus a great battle begins. Gina uses her red hurricanes to throw the elves away, but Enola uses her butterfly technique, draining the criminal's life. Meanwhile, the bandit leader and the elf queen face each other. She is angry because he interrupted her fun with Zhang. He says he could be much better than that long-haired guy. He would perform much better in bed with her. Annoyed, she says she has no time for ugly people like him and only has eyes for our boy. She uses the moonlight beam. It's a powerful energy, and the bandit leader manages to hold the power, but he doesn't have enough strength to stop the blow, so he takes most of the damage. If you retreat now, I'll let you leave alive. Since the crazy guy couldn't steal the village or capture an elf, he says he won't leave empty-handed. Stomping his foot on the ground, he lifts a gigantic stone and after punching it, breaks it into 1,000 pieces. The fragments fly toward Aurora, but with magic she manages to shatter all the stones, turning them into dust. That was a great distraction, all because her main technique was hand-to-hand combat. He approaches the girl using the boar punch and lands it squarely on our dear waifu. She screams, saying the hit hurt a lot, but it was all just a playful trick. She used the scarecrow substitute, and the guy looks around to see where the real Aurora was. The girl was behind him, charging an attack with her staff. This was the sacred moon dance technique. A gigantic explosion occurs above the long-haired guy's head, and we see that he did not fare well at all. Even being an S-class psychic user, there was still a big difference between them. She was on a level far above. In other words, she was at the top strength of the S-class. The crazy guy lay destroyed on the ground. Aurora screams loudly, ordering all the filthy thieves to stay away from the village. She would give them 5 minutes to grab their leader and leave. She was being merciful, but it wasn't for them to bother her again while practicing dual cultivation with Zange. Thus the bandits take their leader and leave. The girl feels relieved and later goes to talk to her younger sister, asking if she's okay. She says yes and begins using her butterfly techniques to heal the other warriors. That power restored the elves' health, and gradually their wounds healed. When Aurora turns to call Zong for cultivation again, she notices he has disappeared and begins searching for him. A little farther away in the forest, the bandits are fleeing. They couldn't believe they had failed so miserably. The good news is they could still make money selling the women as slaves. They went from village to village kidnapping women and commented that they would return to the elf village to subjugate the women. But who was listening to everything was none other than Zangi. The elf princess let you go, but you intend to return to attack them, don't you? I can't believe there are people as trashy as you. The spiky-haired guy feels offended and says he won't let this guy speak as he pleases, and even promises to eliminate the white-haired one because he was dating the queen. But our hero slaps him in the face, telling him to act like a man. The slap was so strong that the guy did a flip in the air. Leaping back, he acknowledges Zhang's skills but says he won't be humiliated again. He tries to act tough, but inside he is dying of fear. Releasing his power, he says he is the strongest man in the Wild Thief Guild. At that moment, our hero cuts him with the longsword. The only fate this guy deserved was elimination. His henchmen can't believe the boss died so quickly, but our hero wasn't going to let the others go unpunished. Throwing the longsword, he transforms it into a whip, which manages to trap all the criminals. This was a new sword technique, and quickly he eliminated all the bandits. Next, Zhang tells Baiken to follow him to the villain village headquarters. He wanted to go there to steal all their money. Meanwhile, Gina managed to escape. She had run as fast as possible, trying to reach the magical Springs Lake, but tentacles appear to capture her. The girl is grabbed and tries to scream for help. But it's useless, guys. Those mischievous tentacles had caught her. The girl says that whenever someone tries to take advantage of her, it always ends like this. Just look at the face of that giant octopus. For God's sake, if you found a creature like that at night, you'd have nightmares every day. The tentacles begin wrapping around her entire body, and the monster says it will devour her completely, saying perverse things I can't repeat here, and opens its mouth to devour her. Quickly, it manages to absorb the woman's entire body and says the meal was delicious. Next, it uses the tentacle imitation technique and transforms into Gina, whom it had just devoured. Meanwhile, Queen Aurora senses a dark energy coming from the magical springs. She already imagines her dear man being devoured by those tentacles, and incredibly, she enjoys the scene. Her sister Enola asks if they shouldn't go there to save Zhang, and she says yes, saying it's necessary to gather the most powerful women to rescue him. The various elves present become motivated, saying they need to save Zhang. You can already imagine why, right? They were afraid to go there because last time they were beaten by the tentacle demon. But this time Aurora said it would be different. She begins calling Zhang by a cute nickname. She calls him Zan Zhang and says that after the dual cultivation experience, she feels more powerful. Tentacles begin emerging from the lower part of the forest. They prepare to attack by surprise. Unexpectedly, the queen is entangled by the purple tentacles, while the little ones behind her giggle. They comment that if they devour this woman, they would become more powerful. However, Aurora electrifies the monster, shocking it immensely. It seems she really became stronger after practicing dual cultivation with the hero. With slightly flushed cheeks, She says these demons are quite naughty and warns her companions to be careful. One of them is grabbed and begins screaming, saying the monster is very sticky. Just looking at these scenes, you can already imagine what these demons want to do. The girl being taken holds her staff firmly, saying she won't let Zhang be captured by the monster. Meanwhile, the tentacle demon only hears them talking about Zhang and imagines he must be someone with a lot of energy. But that doesn't matter, because just feeding on the elf race is already good news. They wanted to feed on the elf queen to transform into her, but the queen ends up stepping on the demon's head. They didn't understand how she had become so strong since the last encounter. She said she was going to settle old matters since the last time she tried to free the spring, she lost humiliatingly. They couldn't believe she had become so powerful. Using electric power, she says she won't let them capture Zhang and ends up blowing up the place where they were, making octopus barbecue. She really thinks our hero was captured by these little creatures, guys. Oh, innocent girl, Enola apologizes because they weren't strong enough and relied on the queen. The queen tells her sisters to stay calm because these monsters are wicked while the elves are innocent. But after the experience with Zhang, she abandoned all her innocence and now can't stop thinking about him. At that moment, the main demon appears. He had Gina's appearance and says the food came straight to his mouth, mentioning that he can already imagine the taste of trying beautiful elves. The queen realizes it wasn't Zhang who had been captured, but this bandit instead. While flying, the queen says she had some advice for her. If the tentacle demon doesn't flee from the magical spring, he will be eliminated, and she sends a ray of light toward him. The creature realizes the elf attacked first, and since the strike seemed powerful, he uses his tentacles as a barrier. The light magic hits squarely, and some parts of the tentacle are burned. He mentions that if he hadn't blocked it, the damage would have been greater. The surprising thing is that the queen became much more powerful in a short time. From above, the queen says this is because of love, and the demon doesn't even know what that means. In defense, the tentacle demon says only weak creatures believe in love and begins spitting some kind of acid. The liquid falls on the elf's clothes, leaving her all dirty. "What kind of sticky liquid is this?" asks the queen. The demon says it's because the elf underestimated his techniques. Now all of Aurora's clothes would melt because of that liquid, and that is exactly what starts happening. The little blonde says it's a shame because the clothes were expensive, but then shivers, saying it would be wonderful if Zhang were there to see her. Think of a naughty elf. The tentacle demon imagines this would embarrass the elf. Since these beings were pure of heart and innocent, they would feel ashamed and wouldn't be able to fight. So he starts throwing more acid. I think this demon still hasn't realized that the elf is quite shameless. As a result, all the other elves behind are hit by the acid. These others do feel embarrassed, but the queen does not. Realizing there were weaker elves nearby, the demon says he will devour them first and charges at them. Seeing the tentacles coming toward her, Enola can't move, but to her surprise, the queen manages to cut the tentacles. Not even the demon can believe she can move freely. She imagined the elves would be embarrassed and paralyzed, but that's not what happens with the queen. The girl admits that in the past she felt weak against these despicable techniques, but now, after dual cultivation with Zhang, she transcends. She had already done things far more wicked than what the tentacle demon was doing. And for those who can read, a dot is a letter. The other elves feel embarrassed hearing the leader say this kind of thing. Even the tentacle demon is surprised to hear so much filth, and begins unleashing his powers, saying the elves are no longer pure of heart. The tentacles enter the ground and start emerging from all sides. The queen finds herself cornered, and all attacks hit the area. But our dear girl had really transcended, guys, and begins making sushi with these people. Do you think this attack compares to Zhang's? Not even close. The only one who can please her with wicked things is precisely her man. Not even the tentacle monster imagined the elves could say such naughty things, let's say. And I'd even like to know what kind of man would make the elves act this way. Meanwhile, the other elves wonder if the queen has already reached this level with Zhang. Being innocent, they don't even imagine what's happening in the cabin. Activating a strike with her staff, the queen says she will no longer accept dirty tricks and wants to end the grudge between the two tribes, the tentacle demons and the elves. So she charges forward, trying to split the demon in half, but he uses a secret technique, smoke cloud. The girl performs a cut but doesn't know if she hit directly. She still says the demon is a coward for running away. Leaping across the trees, she tries to locate the enemy and seems to have found where he fled. Back in the thieves' village, our hero arrives with Baiken. They go to the basements to free the slaves and manage to cut all the chains. They thank the Lord, saying they will serve him. One of them says she could be sold to an entertainment cafe and generate profit for him. Another says she could work in his house cleaning all the utensils, and a third says he could do whatever he wanted with her. The little fox wonders why these slaves say these things and if the young master will also want to make use of them. But Zhang says they are free and can go home. They don't understand and ask if he is serious. He says yes, and although he likes money very much, he doesn't think it's right to do that. The little fox becomes happy and proud. They say they will never forget this kindness and say that when they meet him again, they will reward him. After that, they wonder what they should do now. The little fox is proud and asks why the master seems so confused. He said it was a waste to leave this thieves' castle lost like that in the middle of the forest, and with a little chuckle he said he was going to take this castle along with them. The young man simply cuts a piece of the mountain and immediately abducts it using his magic mirror. Seriously, this artifact is way overpowered. Back in the elf village, the queen ended up following the demon to the magical spring. She managed to see him fleeing to that place and upon arriving, asks how he dares to desecrate this sacred spring. This was an unforgivable sin, but the monster was hidden in the water. He keeps saying that the elves don't know how to use this magical water. That's why the tentacle demon was going to take it for himself. The queen realizes they were misusing that spring and making a mischievous face. The monster says it's not only used to fertilize the elves, but also to procreate other species of demons. But this was a sacred relic for the elves, as they were born from this water source about 5,000 years ago. Vulgar creatures like the tentacle demon could not enter this place, but the monster says he doesn't care about these elf nonsense. Immediately after, he orders his children out from the bottom of the water. The monsters begin bubbling and soon after all appear. The mother of the tentacles orders them to devour the queen and everyone goes for the girl, but she strikes the staff on the ground and uses the lunar guardian barrier. This manages to block the attacks. The demon mocks, saying the barrier won't last long. Seems like you misunderstood. Who said I want to protect myself? Says the queen. In fact, this barrier is an attack technique, and she had charged enough energy to use a solar ray. The demon doesn't understand how such strong energy is forming above her head. From afar, Enola realizes that her sister is using the sacred elf technique. The technique is so powerful that even Zhang, who is far away, can notice. Since it's an extremely strong technique, it needs time to charge, and all this to eliminate the monsters who desecrated the magical lake. At that moment, the extremely powerful solar ray falls from the sky and hits the tentacle demon. The creature begins screaming in pain and the scorching sun burns its entire body. The explosion devastates part of the forest. To protect herself, the queen stays inside the barrier. Her sister goes to save her, knowing that after using that power, the user becomes weak. She was basically betting her final card, aiming to defeat the monster. The area becomes extremely devastated, leaving only a weak pool of magical water. The queen wonders if it worked, all because she used all the energy she still had. She starts to stagger and almost falls to the ground, but at the last moment someone appears to hold her. It was our hero who saved the girl from falling completely to the ground and supports her in that slightly questionable scene. She turns to see if it was really him and even thinks it might be an illusion. But no guys, it was our hero, praising her and saying she was incredible. This makes Aurora extremely infatuated. The little fox wonders what is happening and if it was really necessary to stay in that position. Aurora says it's nothing and that she even liked it. She turns to the hero and says she would like him to help her recover her energy. The guy is embarrassed and his ear even burns, saying she was too close. She asks if he was feeling bad and he says yes. I know you're feeling bad. Look at that shameless face there. She had defeated the tentacle monster alone and said she would like a reward. Without hesitation, she immediately starts kissing the young man. Baiken asks if the queen doesn't see that she is watching everything. At that moment, Enola appears and observes her sister clinging to our protagonist. She is embarrassed, as the scene is very awkward. She didn't imagine her sister could be so wicked, but meanwhile the lake bubbles. A gigantic tentacle rises from within, and the monster says it's too early for the elves to be celebrating. Now he is in his original appearance, in the most powerful form. And so we conclude the first part of The Last Cultivator. If you are enjoying this work and want a continuation, comment for us. Let's set a goal of 200 comments and 1,000 likes. I'm sure you can reach this goal. Guys, I will leave a continuation video that I'm sure you will like. It's a work I really put effort into, guys. So watch it there. See you in the next video. Other than that, that's it. Thanks and see you everyone.